About a year and a half, 2 years ago, she passed away in her car, and nobody knew that she was living in her car, and nobody could find her for 2 weeks. And when we finally found her, she had passed away. My coworkers are excellent at coming to work with a smile on their face, no matter what issues they have. I just recently found out somebody on my shift is living in a motel with his wife and 2 children, and I believe they just had a baby. I know somebody else who, when his wife had a lot of medical issues, they lost their apartment and they were living in their car together. A cast member from my shift actually passed away in her car, and she was so embarrassed that nobody knew she was living in her car, and when she just disappeared, people were searching for her. They were looking at the last address that they had for her, and she wasn't there. People said she hadn't lived there for a long time. She never called out. She was always doing 6 days, and she'd worked for the company for about 10 years, I think, and she was just gone, and the company just wrote her off because she stopped showing up to work. And it was because of the diligent work of the other cast members calling her family and calling the police and everything that they could think of that we were eventually alerted when she was found passed away in her car. The company did nothing to help us find her, and the company continues to do very little to help us get to a wage where we don't have to live in our car or worry about living in our car. I make considerably less than somebody working in like a school district or a hospital doing the same type of work I do.
And how much are you making after 7 years of work?
$11.86.
How do people live on $11.86 an hour?
We don't really. From what I understand, we used to get like little perks. We used to have a Christmas party where it was just the cast members in the park and nobody else was allowed in it. That slowly turned into, we'll give you tickets to come into the park with all of the guests at Christmas time. And then last year, it turned into, you can't come into Disneyland with the Christmas tickets. If you want to come into Disneyland at Christmas, you have to buy tickets yourself.
And you know, it's ironic about Disney. This is supposed to be the place, it's a happy land, right? You're supposed to be making people feel good in fantasy world, and yet many of the workers there are really just struggling.
When you're creating a lot of jobs that don't pay people enough to live on, that create people in a state that they have to depend on the welfare agencies, that people have to go to food stamps, people have to have a second job. I don't see how creating 11,000 jobs is a great answer to being told that those jobs are not enough for people to live on. What I would like to say to Bob Iger, and something that I think he should hear, we are expected to give industry best in everything that we do. We are expected to give industry best service to the guests. We are expected to give industry best cleaning practices. We are expected to have industry best safety. We are expected to be the industry best from the minute we walk out of training, but we are not given industry best in return.